Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Mama to Wife One. If this is your first time here, thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. Obviously you clicked on it because of the title, which is perfectly fine, but feel free to subscribe to my channel so you can see what other wonderful things I have on my channel. And for you guys who are not first timers and you've been coming here regularly every week to talk about these raggedy couples, thank you guys so much for indulging me and for listening to me ramble on about these people that we'll never meet in real life, but whose lives are just so fascinating and entertaining and oftentimes frustrating. If you guys don't know who I am, like I said, I'm Mama's Wife One. I am a content creator. I'm a YouTuber. I am an editor, a mommy, a wife. I am an author. I'm a public speaker. I'm a lot of different things all rolled into one. And a lot of times I come on this channel, on my personal channel, and I talk about Married at First Sight. And we're here to talk about Married at First Sight, season 15, episode 13, which was called The Ugly Truth. First, I want to pause for a minute and shout out this wonderful hoodie. It's fall, it's autumn, my favorite season of the entire world because it's my birthday season and it's getting crisp, so I have this hoodie on, but I wanted to give a shout out to Melissa Fredericks. You guys can't read it, but it basically says, "I'm worth it as is, without change, without exception." I don't know if you guys are familiar with Melissa Fredericks and her husband, Kevin Fredericks, aka Kev on Stage and Mrs. Kev on Stage, but I just wanted to show them love because they experienced a death in their family and they are, dealing with all that stuff right now. So I just wanted to show them some love because it's never easy to deal with grief. And so I wore this just to show her a little bit of love today. So anyway, let's talk about Married at First Sight. So first, we got to see the newest expert, Devon Franklin. I know that you guys are familiar with the show and have been watching the show as long as I have. You saw the news come out about them adding 2 more experts because Dr. Viviana has left the show. What I liked is that they gave Devon Franklin an official introduction. We got to hear Pastor Cal and we got to hear Dr. Pepper talk about why they brought him on, and so excited to have him as part of it, but they did specify that he is a guest expert. So I don't know if that means he's just here for the season or if they're trying to see how he works with the audience and then they'll make him permanent. I'm not sure what that's about, but I didn't feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't feel like we got that same kind of introduction with Dr. Pia, unless I turned my head for a minute and I missed it. But I just remember her popping up on the screen and oh, here's Dr. Pia. I don't remember Pastor Cal or Dr. Pepper really talking about her and giving her a full introduction. So I did have a little problem with that. But I digress. I think I'll say for Devon Franklin, he only spoke to Alexis and Justin. And I thought that in my mind, and thinking how he probably thought, I'm on this show for who knows how long. I don't know if the contract is for 1 episode, for a couple episodes, whatever. But I think he was like, however long I'm on the show, I'm going to make an impact. They're going to remember who the heck I am. He came in guns blazing and not lit into them in a bad way, but just immediately was on okay, so you need this and then freedom and you need this and this, and was just kind of rapid fire with them. But everything he said was really on point. It was really insightful. And it definitely was what they needed because he was going so fast that they didn't even have time to really get into their feelings or to get an attitude or anything like that. They just were flowing with him oh, wow, you're right. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh my gosh, you're so right. So he did a really good job. I will say that. I liked what he did. I liked the energy that he brought. And again, I felt like he was taking full advantage of his 5 minutes or however long he was on the show. So we're going to start with the obvious. We're going to start with Morgan and Ben. Decision day was last night for them and they decided to get divorced. But let me say, it's still so infuriating that everything is still from Morgan's point of view. Even when Dr. Pepper was talking to Ben, it wasn't nobody's held Morgan accountable at all. And maybe there's some stuff that we haven't seen behind the scenes, and that's why everybody's on Morgan's side, maybe. But even when Dr. Pepper was talking to them, she's like, so Ben, you were very judgmental and really hurt Morgan. And, how do you feel now? And there was nothing to Morgan about, well, how do you feel about the fact that, you kind of manipulated Ben and you made it clear that you were only going to stay long enough so that you can continue to hurt him and blah, 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 blah. She is not held accountable at all. And I'm not saying that Ben was right in what he did. Not even in terms of talking to Justin, but I guess in terms of lying about it. Okay, that was wrong. I get that. I understand that. But there's no discussion about how Morgan's reaction to that was a very extreme reaction, especially for someone who was essentially a stranger. And it speaks to the fact that she has a lot of pent up frustration and distrust and anger towards her father, and probably some exes and other experiences in her life that made her have such a strong reaction to what he said and did. And the fact that that hasn't been addressed, or that nobody said, Morgan, you need to really get a hold of that, because, you know, I think you're blaming Ben almost for stuff that's happening in life that you thought you had a handle on, but you don't have a handle on. Nobody came to her and said that to her, unless, again, they said it off camera, perhaps. But it just feels like everything was put on Ben, including the ex was putting everything on Ben. And I just don't think that's fair. At least from a viewer perspective, it looked like equally they both could have done things differently and could have done things better. And it pissed me off when Morgan is basically, it felt like Ben looks like someone who's either called to the principal's office and sitting next to his mother, basically, who's saying, you know, well, my son, yes, he's not great. I don't trust him. He's not a good person. He's not the man for me. The fact that she was like, Ben is not the husband for me, as opposed to at any point in her mind did she ever think that maybe she's not the wife for him either. And I'm pretty sure that didn't cross her mind. Again, everybody's putting everything on Ben. But again, and I said this in the previous video, from what I've seen with the two of them, I haven't seen one moment where Morgan has done anything quote unquote wife-like to Ben, or has even attempted to figure out what kind of wife he thinks that he needs, or he thinks that he wants. I don't remember that conversation ever happening, because they did have moments where they were cool, but even when they were cool and he's pouring his heart out, there was no reciprocation from her. There was no warmth from her. There was no love from her. There was nothing. There was no acknowledgement of the fact that he's going through it. No acknowledgement of the fact that he's having all these revelations about his childhood and his relationship with his father, and how he's a people pleaser, and how he became judgmental. There's no recognition of, oh, I'm so glad that you know, are taking that time to do the work. I know it must be really difficult for you, and this must be such a hard thing to go through. Like, there's none of that. And again, at that point, you guys were good. This is before you knew that he lied or whatever. So at that point, when he's pouring his heart out, everything was on a pretty even playing field. So you still didn't give him what he needed. So he's not completely at fault in this thing. You also were not the best wife for him. And who knows, maybe you're not ready to be anybody's wife at this point. And it just sucks, because even in that moment of, okay, fine, you know, we're done, we're having a divorce, whatever. I hated that Dr. Pepper asked Morgan first if she wanted to get a divorce. You should have asked Ben first. Everything's been put on Morgan. Morgan's been the one running this whole thing from the very beginning, and it pisses me off. And my husband's like, you know, well, Ben needs to be strong, he needs to be a man, he needs to put his foot down. And I agree, not all men are that assertive and aggressive, I guess, but I feel like Ben never had a voice from the beginning. And again, maybe that's just stemming from the issues he does have with childhood, and not having a voice and not being able to, you know, express his feelings properly. That could all be, you know, a cause of it, I guess. But I feel like we didn't get enough of Ben talking to his boys, or again, Ben is a mama's boy. We ain't seen the mama since the freaking wedding. Like, I understand, you know, I've heard some people say, like, oh, well, you know, his mom will probably just put everything on Morgan, so maybe that's why I'm not showing her. But that's the whole point, that right now everybody's putting everything on Ben. Ben doesn't have anybody advocating for him except for Justin. And I'm sorry, Justin's not like the best person that I want on my side. Like, I don't give a freak what he says. Have somebody else who's known Ben for a long amount of time, who knows his character, who knows his heart. Have some of his boys come out there, have his mom or somebody. But I felt like Ben was just kind of left out there with nobody to talk to. Because now with Morgan having his attitude, now of course he can't talk to Justin anymore. So who the heck does Ben have? He doesn't really have anybody, because technically you would have the experts, but the experts all seem to be on Morgan's side. So I just felt very bad for him. I thought the whole situation just really unnecessary, and I thought it was messy. And I won't say I blame Morgan completely, but I just hate the fact that she hasn't seen her role in any of this, and she hasn't been held accountable by anybody. And if nobody's holding you accountable, then obviously it's easy to not hold yourself accountable. But that whole thing really upset me. And even when they got together with the other couples, again, it was Morgan kind of announcing everything. Like, Ben didn't get a chance to really say anything. I like the fact that Alexis asked him, well, Ben, how do you feel about this? I don't like the fact that it was Alexis the one that asked him, though, because I feel like, again, everybody's just took her side. I think the guys all understand and they're not taking her side, but I don't know. The whole situation could have been avoided, could have been handled a lot differently. I think they both needed kind of one-on-one counseling. And Ben's right. Maybe Ben wasn't ready to be a husband, but I don't think Morgan was ready to be a wife either, personally. And that's pretty much all I have with him. I don't think we'll see them again. If we do, it may be a little cameo here and there, but, you know. Que sera, sera, whatever. So I think we're going to go, only couple I had a lot of notes on really was Kristen and Mitch, and there was a lot to say there. But I think we're going to go with, we'll go with Alexis and Justin. So I liked them talking to Devon Franklin. I also liked them this episode. All the experts came to talk to the couples because basically at this point they are about 12 days away from decision day. So the point of meeting with the experts now is like, okay, let's figure out what needs to be resolved that hasn't been resolved. Is there anything that's been swept under the rug? Are there any new issues that have come up? Let's look towards the future, not just decision day, but let's figure out what the future looks like for our couples. Let's talk to them, figure out how we can help, give them advice, revisit old things or whatever. So Lex and Justin, like I said, talked to Devon Franklin, but also this episode, all of the couples, for the most part, individually reached out to the loved ones or the family members or friends, whatever, of their spouse, which I always like that they do that. And I like they do that towards the end of the season because it is a great chance to be like, you know, this is where we are. We're doing well. However, we kind of hit the stumbling block. Is there any advice you can give me? Because the last time they really did that was at the housewarming party, if they had one. And then at the wedding. And at the wedding, it's a little different because so much stuff is going on. So I like that now they're a little more settled. Now they know their spouse a little bit better. They can have that one-on-one conversation with their spouse's sister, mother, friend, or whatever and say, hey, this is where we are. I really like your friend, or I love your brother, but I'm having difficulty with this. How can we navigate this? Teach me how to navigate this. So I appreciate that they all did that. So Justin met up with Alexis's friend, Will, to get some perspective on her. And let's see, the friend said that basically fear and pressure, I guess, from both sides is making their bad time so much worse. Because it's probably a fear of this not working out and then pressure to make it work out. And I guess that's from both sides. But the friend assured Justin that Alexis, I guess, has indicated that Justin is everything that she needs and everything that she wants. Justin fears Alexis quitting the marriage. And he said that he's traumatized by women in his past who have quit the relationship. And I think that's a very viable fear. When they met with Devon Franklin, I like that Alexis said that she's going to try to be on the offense since she and Justin are on the same team. I really liked that analogy because we do always talk all the time about, you know, don't be defensive, don't be on the defense. But we never talk about the importance of being on the offense and being on the same team and presenting a united front and having the same goal in mind. And Justin kind of said that. He was like, she and I really want the same things at the end of the day. We just communicate them very differently. And I feel like if you know that you guys have the same goals at the end of the day, then the communication part shouldn't be as big of a deal if you guys are looking at the big picture. And it's probably easier said than done, obviously, because I'm not in their relationship. I'm not there when they have their blow-ups. But it helps in any relationship, whether it's romantic, whether it's a relationship with your boss, a relationship with your child. As long as that overall goal is shared amongst you guys, that's the most important thing. And I think it helps to kind of remember what you guys are aiming for, remember what you're fighting for. And the communication stuff shouldn't be as much of an issue if you guys know that, okay, ultimately, I want you to be happy. I want you to feel free. I want you to feel safe. I want you to feel loved. If you want the same things from me, then let's figure out a way to work together to achieve these mutual goals. And let me see. So Devon Franklin, I told you, he kind of jumped right in and he talked about he brought up the whole thing of her going to the club again, right? And she talked about, he asked her, what is the feeling you have when you go to the club? She was like, it's a feeling of freedom. I work really hard. I put in a lot of hours during the week. So I need that time to just be free and just relax. She didn't say that the purpose was necessarily to hang out with her friends. I just want that feeling of freedom. And he said, so it sounds like you don't have that feeling of freedom in your own marriage. And that's why you're seeking it in the club. So then he's talking to Justin like, okay, but you want her to have that freedom. So how can we manifest that same feeling in your actual marriage? I was like, ooh, he got deep real quick. He just kind of zoomed in on the issue. I don't think things have been completely solved, but I did feel like they both got a breakthrough that they've been looking for because they both were kind of, you know, with Devon Franklin going as fast as he was, there wasn't time for them to point fingers. There was time for them to kind of express themselves. He kind of interpreted what they were saying, and they were just like, oh, aha, I get it. I understand. Okay. So it gave them clarity. They didn't again, doesn't necessarily mean that now things are going to be great and wonderful, because that was just one issue. There's probably a bunch of other issues that they still haven't really touched the surface of, and it still doesn't really deal with the issue of their communication. And, you know, the other issue he brought up was sex. They still have not had sex yet, and she's saying she needs to be dominated in the bedroom. I don't think to the extreme of like BDSM and getting tied up and whipped and chained and all that stuff, but I think that she doesn't want to be the one, because she says in her career and during the week, she's already very dominating and has to be aggressive and assertive and be the boss and be on it. So when she comes home and then it's time for, you know, the freaky deaky stuff, she wants her man to take charge, to be the one to be like, yo. And for Justin, he kind of fills out her energy. And if he feels like her energy isn't matching, he backs away. As opposed to kind of pushing it a little bit, he kind of like is a little more timid with his approach. And that's probably what he's done in the past. But I say this to couples all the time. The way you do things with your current person, not even your current person, the way you've done things with somebody in the past, whether it's the way you communicated with them, whether it was your idea of quality time with them, whether it was sex with them, that was for that person, specific to that person. And you could have been amazing at all. You could have been amazing in the bedroom. You could have been amazing with the cuddling, could have been amazing with all these other things. But when you get to this new person, yes, you were amazing with that person, and that's great, but that doesn't mean that, let's say sex specifically, that doesn't mean that the sexual moves you had with the previous person is going to fly with the new person. Because men and women, even though we're a lot alike across the board, we're different. So the way you kissed this person over here, your new person may not want to be kissed that way. She may not like a lot of tongue. She may want extra tongue. She may not like to be kissed at all. So it's a matter of learning this new person and learning what they like. So if Alexis likes someone to dominate her in the bedroom, if Justin has always been a little more timid when it comes to that, then he has to understand, okay, timid worked for me in the past, but now I'm with the person who does not want that, who wants me to be more dominating. And granted, it is hard to kind of turn on a dime, especially because he's been celibate for so long, but this is a chance to grow, to try some things out, to ask for her direction, to talk to some other people to get advice from them. This is the time for him to kind of grow and change in that area and be open to the idea of, you know, being more aggressive and being more dominating and all that stuff, and figuring out what those limits are, because being dominant to him may be something completely different for her. She may just be like, I just want you to come in the room, throw me against the wall, and rip my clothes off. And his version of that may be completely different. So, you know, obviously that requires a lot of communication, but it requires you to be open and honest. And again, understanding that just because that's not what you did in the past doesn't mean what you did in the past was wrong. It just means you got to change up what you're doing for this new person now. And especially if there's somebody you're trying to stay married to for the rest of your life, then yeah, you need to kind of figure out what this looks like for you. And that's fine. And I feel like a lot of times when they're arguing, I don't know half the time what they're arguing about. It's like, what, y'all going in circles? What are we doing here? But last night it felt like they were on good terms. It felt like they were at peace with their situation, at least on that day, because things change up for them every single week. But at least last night it looked like they were at peace, and they were like, okay, I got this. So we're going to go to Sasha and Nate. She has told him that she loves him. And I was very surprised by that. Not surprised by the fact that she does love him, but surprised by the fact that she told him without hearing it from him. Because I felt like Sasha's the kind of person where I may love you for a month, 2 months, even a year. But if you don't say it to me first, you ain't going to hear it out of my mouth. You'll hear it as a response to you saying it to me, but I'm not going to be the one to say it first. So I'm really surprised that she said it. I think that Nate does love her, but you know, they brought up a good point when she talked to his boys. He has had puppy love in high school, but he's never had a serious relationship. He's 34 years old, or 35, whatever old he is. He's never had a serious relationship. He's never been in love with a person. Outside of his family, he's never told anybody that he loves them. So, of course, it's going to be a little difficult for him because he may second guess what he's feeling. He may not trust what he's feeling. He may, you know, he told Pastor Kyle, I'm waiting for the right time. I did thought it was funny. They met with Pastor Kyle, and I thought it was funny that Pastor Kyle was like, yeah, I'm kept up to date with what you guys are going through. Some stuff was uncomfortable because, last week they went to like a sex dungeon, and Nate had the audacity to ask Pastor Kyle, like, Pastor Kyle, you don't get freaky? Don't be asking him that. He's married. Of course he gets freaky. This is his second marriage. Of course he gets freaky. I thought it was a really funny light moment with them. And also thought they didn't have anything really big to discuss for the most part. I think they're doing actually very well. he did find out that Stasha cheated in a relationship. And he's like, yeah, that makes it feel some type of way. And I was like, she said it was over 10 years ago. She's 37. So that means this happened in her early 20s. In your early 20s, everybody does dumb stuff. Nobody's in a, well, I can say nobody. Most people in their early 20s are not in a strong, committed relationship that's about to stand the test of time. For the most part, you are exploring, you're learning yourself, you're in college, you just graduated from college, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. So in a relationship you have, for the most part, it's just something to do as opposed to your main focus. So I thought it was weird that but he's basically said that I guess her finding out that she did that made him look at her a little differently, because in his mind, he sees her as a certain kind of person. But he also admitted to her friends, like, keep in mind, when I met her, though, I only know the 37-year-old version of Stasha. I know this version, who's a boss, who makes all this money, who has her stuff together, who owns properties. That's the Stasha that I know. So because that's what I know, and that's what I admire, and that's what I care about, it's hard to equate this Stasha with the Stasha from her past. But it's like, you don't have to, though. Because she didn't have to admit it. She could have just been like, no, I ain't cheat. Like, who's somebody going to come out the closet and like, no, she lying? She could have lied. But I also thought it was weird that he even flinched a little bit at that. And it's like, because I guess he's never cheated and he hasn't knowingly been cheated on. But it just seemed kind of weird. Like, okay, but it was a long time ago. And he kind of judged her for it a little bit, but he seemed to kind of catch himself and he understood what he was doing. And he didn't like treat her differently after that, which I appreciate. It was just like, just kind of a little blip. But he talked to her family and she talked to his boys, and basically it was like, one thing Pastor Cal did say, he was talking to Nate. He said, she hasn't told you everything, but the question is, does she need to? And to that, I say no. Not because she needs to hide anything from Nate necessarily, but I've been with my husband for 19 years, married for 9 years, but I've been with him for 19 years. And I'm still learning stuff about him, learning stuff about food that he doesn't like, sports teams that he does like, learning about how he likes his eggs or whatever, just small stuff. But it's like, how come I never knew that? But it's because it just never came up. So I don't think you're ever going to know everything about your spouse. You're going to know your spouse well enough to know how they're going to react to a situation, to know how they like their burger or something like that. But there's always going to be something to learn. And I feel like if you try to learn everything, especially in 8 weeks, like, no, you're not going to try to learn everything in 8 weeks. And you don't need to know everything in 8 weeks. You need to know enough of that person's character to know if it's something that you want to live with for the rest of your life. But that doesn't include knowing every single part of a person. But yeah, nothing like really exciting happened with him. I think Stasha and Nate are going to be perfectly fine. I believe that he will tell her that he loves her before the 8 weeks are up. But I have no problem with them. I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to be okay. They're, for me, probably the couple that has the best chance. I will say this thing, which I thought was funny. Sasha met up with his friends, right? And two of his boys. And, they had the housewarming party where they had some of his friends, some of her friends there. That woman at their wedding, who was his friend, the white woman, I don't remember her name, but the one where Stasha was kind of not giving her the evil eye, but felt a little weird. She's like, oh yeah, Nate and I are so close. And we go on long walks together and we love like sunset, walks. So I can't wait for you to come with us on our sunset walks. We ain't seen that chick since. We have not seen hide no hair of this woman since the wedding. And I just thought that was very funny because I kind of observed that last night. Like, she just disappeared off the face of the earth. Wonder what that's about. So I just thought that was funny because it tickled me. So who's left? Lindy and Miguel and Kristen and Mitch. I'm going to save Kristen and Mitch for last because I just feel like there's a lot to unpack there. Lindy and Miguel, the past couple weeks, I haven't had a lot of stuff for them. They went axe throwing, and I did put a question of, is this a new phenomenon? I don't say I know. I feel like axe throwing is something I just heard about for the first time maybe 2 years ago, and now I'm seeing it everywhere. And I thought it was mainly a down south thing. I don't know why, but they did it in California. So is this like a new thing? Like, do people do this on a regular basis, like throw axes? I just thought it was interesting. And Miguel sucks and didn't hit the target at all, while Lindy was killing it. She was like getting it here and there. So the one thing he brought up to her friend, and I found it interesting, actually, she didn't talk to any of his friends or his sister or anybody. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But he met up with her friend and they talked about the fake baby that they had last week for however long they had it. And he said to the friend that one thing I know about Lindy is that she goes from A to Z very quickly. She goes from calm to anger. There's like no in between. There's no build up. It's just immediate. She has an immediate reaction to things where she's immediately defensive. She immediately feels triggered about something. She's immediately upset. She's immediately scared. She's immediately anxious. Like there's no in between with her. And he was like, that can get old pretty quickly. And it's, you know, especially with the baby, because it was a fake baby. I think that's why she didn't. And I feel like that's not a good moniker either, to say how somebody's going to be with a real baby. Because obviously with the real baby, you have time to get used to the idea. You have those 9 months of being pregnant where you're reading the books and you're studying things and you're going to Lamaze classes or whatever. So I feel like that's not really a good gauge of how she would be as a mother necessarily, but it is a good gauge of how she is in stressful situations. And he basically was like, she's not good in stressful situations. So she's depending on him to be good in the situations, which she is. But I can see from his perspective how it's like, okay, but you know, I'm not always going to be there. So what if I'm away and you're in a certain situation by yourself? I need to know that you're calm enough that you're going to handle it and not freak out, especially if they have kids at that point. So I understood him kind of bringing it up, and he didn't bring it up as a red flag or as, you know, a non-negotiable. It was more, you know, I have noticed that she is a little negative and it's just a cycle of negativity, and, you know, it does affect me a little bit, not a lot, but it affects me enough where it's like, okay, I'm noticing this and, you know, whatever. So again, it was nothing big and nothing serious that they were talking about. It was like next week is going to be a little more drama. But nothing really happened with them. Okay, let's go to Kristen and Mitch. So I want to start by saying I feel like Mitch is very oblivious to a lot of the things that Kristen is talking about. And I saw a clip actually from the after party where she said that sometimes it feels for her like Mitch does not know how to talk to women. And if you're 41 and you don't know how to have a conversation with a woman, then it's like, what can I do with that? Like, I shouldn't be teaching you how to talk to me, teaching you how to address me, teaching you how to adjust your tone or whatever. So I think that is a valid concern. But I feel bad because Mitch a lot of times looks really lost. Like, I thought we were doing good. I thought we were having a good time. Like, I don't understand. So they met up with Dr. Pepper. And Kristen basically said, oh, actually, even before that, she met up with Mitch's sister-in-law because one of her issues that she has is how contrary Mitch is. And what I understand that to mean is when I say something, no matter what it is, oh, I really like the blue sky. I'm looking at my window. Look at the blue sky and the green on the trees is so beautiful. And then instead of saying, oh, yeah, that is pretty, he'll just kind of be like, yeah, but you know how much they waste when they do this? And you know how many trees they cut down a year to make paper and to make money? And it's just, I just don't understand. Like, that's just so unnecessary. And it's like, why couldn't you just say, oh, it's pretty too? So I think that's kind of, I mean, that's obviously a really basic example, but I feel like that's what she's saying, that anytime she has a conversation with him, it turns into an argument or long discussion about elitism and about the environment and about capitalism and about the rich versus the poor. Like, it's just a lot. And sometimes it's like, that's a lot. And I understand you're passionate and I don't have a problem with that, but there needs to be a balance there. Maybe sometimes you can kind of rein it in just a tad bit and we can just kind of chill out. And so the sister-in-law basically told him that, you know, she had the same problem with him when they first met. She was like, but things calmed down a little bit and he knows how to talk to her. And I think that Kristen needed to have that conversation with the sister-in-law because that proves to her that Mitch is capable of changing, or at least capable of adjusting to the person he's talking to. And that's important because if there's no hope of that, then like, what are we doing here, right? She did say that she wants to be Mitch's co-pilot, but she just feels like she needs more information. She just needs to figure out how to navigate all of that. And the sister-in-law encouraged her to be vulnerable and ask him the tough questions about what they need with each other. So they met with Dr. Pepper, and I did say in the beginning that his body language, much like Ben's, looked like he was at the principal's office because Kristen just started talking, and he's just looking like, okay, what's she going to say now? I don't know what she's going to say. What is she going to say now? Okay, I'm in trouble again. And they went back to the whole conversation about flipping houses. And I was like, but I guess I understood what Kristen was saying. She was like, we never really resolved that. And his reaction, I just didn't like his reaction. I understand his thought process, but it's like, but this, you know, this is what I want to do. And Dr. Pepper basically told him, you cannot put the trials of the world and saving the world all on your wife's shoulders. So sometimes you need to back off. Back off, let her do what she needs to do. Stop trying to put everything on her, because the world does have a lot of stuff going on with it. It is a terrible world out there. A lot of bad things are happening, blah, blah, blah. We all get that. We live here. We understand what's happening. But don't put that all on your wife and put it on her as her responsibility to change everything. Like, that's not fair either. And I put that, it's like, Mitch is a very intense person. He asked Kristen if she could handle that, and she honestly says she doesn't know. And she said him being contrary affects her. He asked her what would it take for, I thought he asked a really good question. So then basically they kind of not tabled that discussion, but basically Dr. Pepper told him, like, you need to kind of calm down, back off a little bit. And Mitch's question to her was, when we, on the honeymoon, you told me, if we're not physical, and if you don't get an I love you by decision day, then you are not going to say yes to decision day. Has that changed for you? Because for me, the way I look at decision day is I'm looking at the progress that we've made as an indicator of what our future is going to look like, what we can have, as opposed to just making a decision on what we have now, and that's it, like we're not moving forward. And even though we have had sex, we've kind of put a stop to that for right now. So, we haven't changed our love yous. He was like, so how are you feeling now? And she said, you're right. When I said that to you, that was basically right after you told me you weren't attracted to me. But you're absolutely right. I look at it differently now. I am looking at it the way you're looking at it, where it's like, we have made progress. Let's see if where we're going is sustainable, and that will decide if I say yes to decision day. But she did tell him that she wants him to be open to the idea of loving her in the future, of being committed to the idea of being in love with her. And he said he can definitely do that. And I said this, out of all the couples, I love their communication the most. I feel like Lindy and Miguel, they talk a lot, but I feel like some of their deeper conversations, maybe we don't necessarily see. But Kristen and Mitch, even though the conversations are very tough, they're very open with each other. And Kristen, you can see every episode, she's becoming more and more open. She's more comfortable with being herself. She's not so focused necessarily on appeasing him or being the best wife ever, because she understands in order to be the best, and this is a tip for you guys who are not married out there, to be the best wife or to be the best husband, you have to be the best version of yourself. Because if I'm not being myself completely and entirely, then I'm presenting a falsehood to my husband, and I'm not being the best for him. And being the best myself doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, but you got to take me as I am. This is me. I'm being completely honestly and authentically myself. It means being authentic, but it also means that understanding that I have my own flaws. I know that I can be selfish. I know that I can be demanding. I know that, I have other things that aren't necessarily great. So being the best version of myself is making sure that those issues that I notice, that I'm actively working on those issues. And I keep that in mind when I'm communicating with my husband. So that way, those parts of me that I'm still working on do not impact my marriage negatively. And that's all Kristen is doing. I think she understands, like, he's a person who loves communication. He wants to be held accountable, just like he wants to hold other people accountable. So now that I know that, I'm going to be a lot more free in the things that I say, a lot more free with my frustration with him, and a lot more clear about what exactly it is that I need and what exactly it is that I do not want. So every week we're seeing her kind of blossom a little bit with that, which I appreciate. Also put, what kind of 41-year-old slurps noodles? He's eating his food and he was slurping stupid loud. And again, I know the editors of this show are extremely petty. So I know that they amplify a lot of things. So I'm sure they were amplifying the sound of the slurping noodles. But even Kristen's expression was like, okay. And you could tell she was so annoyed, because that's just so, it's rude. It's childish. You are 41 years old. What are you doing, Mitch? So that annoyed me. I'm not even a big person like that cares about how people eat or whatever. I don't care. But that's just like, come on, dog. Like, just relax a little bit. He did warn her, though, that he could get more extreme when they have a permanent home. Because I guess some stuff he's kind of let go because, we're in a temporary home, it doesn't matter. But in his permanent home, he doesn't use paper towels. He uses regular towels that he washes. And she was like, okay, I can get on board with that as long as I'm not the only one washing them. He's like, okay, that's fair. So I was like, okay, look at that. Compromise. We can do this. But the fact that he was like, you really haven't seen all of my extremeness, I would have been like, dog, really? And that alone would turn me off. Like, this has already been a lot, and you're telling me there's more to unpack. that I haven't seen yet. And you're expecting me to say yes on decision day without seeing how extreme you can actually be. I don't know about that, dog. So that alone, I've been like, And then he talked to her sister. One thing I will say about her sister looks a lot like her. Her sister talks exactly like Kristen. Like, their voices sound very similar, and the way they talk is very similar, which I thought was really, really cute. And I was like, oh, look at that. But he said this in his own like confessional, and then he said it to his sister-in-law, how he wants to figure out how to let Kristen know that he prefers her, that he finds her most beautiful when she looks natural, when she's dressed down, not wearing makeup, not doing all that stuff. Like, that's his preference. But he's afraid to say that to her because of the conversations they've had in the past about him telling her, you know, you're not my type, I'm not attracted to you, whatever. Even though that was weeks ago and he feels differently now, he's hesitant to say anything regarding her looks to her because he doesn't want to hurt her feelings, right? Technically. But so my question was, how often is she dressing up? Because she said when she met him, like, oh, well, he mentioned it like at the wedding day, like, oh, well, you know, I kind of like the natural. Now that I see you better, it's like, oh, okay, I like this version of you. She's like, oh, yeah, she's like, I don't really do a lot. I don't dress up that much or whatever. So again, that's my question. Like, how often is she getting dolled up for you? Or not for you. How often is she getting dolled up that you want to say something about it? Like, is she... and the thing is, even the wedding day, when she took her makeup off, she looked exactly the same when she had the makeup on. Like, she's not one of those people who wears like a 2-3 inches thick of makeup on your face where you look unrecognizable. She looked exactly the same with the makeup on. The only difference was that I think without makeup she has like some redness in her face, but other than that she looked exactly the same. So she wasn't like completely dolled up. She may have had some lashes on maybe, but it wasn't over the top. It wasn't a bunch of blush. It wasn't a bunch of lipstick. It wasn't a bunch of eyeshadow. It just looked like a natural looking face. And the sister-in-law had to tell them, like, look here, let me tell you something. It's like, because I'm very passionate about this. Women do not wear makeup or get their hair done for men. She does it for herself. She's like, she has insecurities maybe, but she does what she needs to do to feel pretty. She feels prettiest when she's putting on makeup. She feels pretty when she's getting her hair done. So don't try to take that away from her or try to indicate that she should not do those things, because she does those things for herself and not for you, which I appreciated. But of course, you know, they're sisters. They're going to talk. So when Kristen hears that, she gets pissed off, which I don't think I expected her to get mad necessarily. But she thought it was rude because basically in her mind, it's rude that you went to my sister to tell her that you want me to dress a certain way, and basically saying what I'm doing now isn't enough for you. And we're still kind of back where we were before, where you're still not satisfied with the way I look and you have an issue with it. And I hate the fact that you went and told my sister because it's rude to me. So she's kind of telling a version of this to Morgan, who is like her co-conspirator. I don't know why, because Morgan is trash, but neither here nor there. So she's kind of telling Morgan off to the side about it, like, yeah, you know, I'm trying to get through this. You know, we're talking, we're figuring this out. I don't know if she mentioned the conversation specifically, but I think she may have. But kind of let it go. It wasn't going to say anything to Mitch, probably in front of everybody. Because at this point, after they all met with the experts, they all met up at their property and they played games. They did like volleyball in the pool and just had like a good time outside, right? Eating. Miguel cooked all the food, grilled all the food, and, you know, had a good time. So now they're just all, you know, sitting with their person, and they're just sitting outside, just having this conversation, just chit-chatting, and just kind of asking each other, oh, so how was your visit with the expert? What did the expert tell you? They get to Kristen and Mitch, and Mitch is like, you know, things are okay. I am learning how to do this. I'm learning how to do that. I think that we're in a good place. So right now we're just talking about what decision day means for both of us and figuring out, you know, what we both really want. And we're just figuring that out together. You know, very simple, relaxed. Kristen says nothing, right? She doesn't necessarily look uncomfortable because he's not lying the things that he's saying. So she's like, okay. Then Alexis stirs the pot. Now, this is my question, because I was confused by this completely. This scene was very confusing to me. So Alexis said, oh, okay, Mitch, because I remember when you said that you had a problem with her wearing makeup and getting her hair done and stuff. So it seems like you're over that, right? So that doesn't bother you anymore? And he's looking at her like, when did I say that? Now, granted, he did say it. We heard him say it to her on the wedding day. We also heard him, say it. We heard him say it on the wedding day. Sorry, guys, that was my husband bringing my lunch. So sorry for that. He said it on the wedding day to her. And then I feel like he said it to the camera, but I don't remember him discussing it amongst everybody. And that was my question. Like, is she purposely starting the pod? Did the producers ask her to ask that question? And Justin was co-signing it. Like, oh, yeah. Because even Mitch was like, did I say that? And he knew he said it, but I think the whole purpose was he wasn't saying, did I actually say those words? He was basically saying, did I say that to all of you? Like, how do all of you know about this? And all of them didn't, because Alexis was like, oh, no. And Justin was like, oh, yeah, I heard you say it. And Sasha was like, no, I never heard him say that. And Nate was like, I didn't either. So apparently Alexis and Justin, I don't know if Kristen did, you know what? I just answered my own question. Kristen and Alexis did have a little chat, just the two of them before. So maybe Kristen told her there. Because I was confused, like, how the heck does Alexis and Justin know, but everybody else doesn't know? Because I was so confused. And so then he was like, oh, yeah, I did say that. But he didn't. Yeah. He never said it amongst everybody. So I did think it was pretty shady of Alexis to bring it up right then and there. Again, I don't know if the producers put her up to it, but I thought it was shady to do it in that forum. So at that point, all the experts who have been watching them, they come back out. And Dr. Pepper looks at them and she's like, Kristen, I can tell that you're upset. She was like, I think it's really rude. I don't appreciate it. And she said, I am tired of accepting his triumph. I want someone who is excited when I walk into a room. I like that. And basically what she was saying was, I'm tired of saying, oh, you're making progress, and oh, you're putting in work, and oh, this is great. It feels like we're talking about the same things over and over again. I'm tired of being punished almost for not being what you thought you needed coming down the aisle. You basically wanted some kind of like hippie girl, like my sister told me that. And it's just frustrating to me because, you can't accept me for who I am, but yet you expect me to accept you for all of who you are, all your extremeness and your contrariness and your passion for environmentalism. You want me to accept all of that, but you're not willing to accept all of me. You're not willing to accept what I'm doing and what I'm saying and who I am. And I understand from that perspective, I do understand her being upset if she was. And she's talking to the experts. The experts are like, oh, and Dr. Temple was like, well, I'm sorry. She said, no, I don't want your apology. I want his apology. And Mitch, again, just looked so like I don't know what happened. Like, we were having a good time and it went up to 10. But I understand for him, it went from 0 to 10. From her, it was a gradual thing. She accepted on the honeymoon when he said he wasn't attracted to her. But that's always been in the back of her mind. And so after that, she tried overly hard to be the kind of wife that she thought he needed by putting herself second, by making sure he was good, by doing all these things environmentally that he wants. And then after a while, she snapped because she's like, well, no, everybody gives him credit for doing this and doing that. I'm not getting credit for all the work I'm putting in. And in doing that, I've been putting myself last, and I'm not doing that anymore. So I understood her being really upset. I got it. I don't think Mitch completely gets it, because I think at the end of the day, Mitch is who he is. He's 41 years old. So if he's saying, I prefer a woman who's not wearing makeup, I prefer a woman who, does this, does that, the only way that that's not going to bother him anymore is if he focuses less on what he prefers in a woman and focuses more on what I like about Kristen specifically. Yes, you may want a woman who does these things. Yes, you may want a woman who looks like this. But the woman you have is Kristen. So look at Kristen. Look at the person she is. Look at her character. Look at her face. Look at her body. Look at all that stuff. And if you still are picking apart in your head what she is missing, then no, you don't need to be with her anymore. But if you're looking at her and because of the feelings you have for her, you're, I'm going to say willing because that's kind of a weird word, but you are accepting of who she is because this person that you really care about, the inner part of Kristen is who you really care about. If you really have those strong feelings, then it's not going to matter too much what kind of packaging this woman comes in. But I don't know if Mitch is there. I don't know if he even understands that concept, but it sucks because Kristen, you remember with her backstory, she's the one who was engaged. And then a couple weeks before the wedding, which was a destination wedding, she found out that her fiance had cheated on her. She deserves to have a happy marriage, but she deserves to be in a marriage where she doesn't feel like she has to hide parts of herself to appease another person. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. Again, Stasha and Nate for me are like the best couple. Kristen and Mitch have the best communication, but it doesn't mean anything if no action is taking place behind you guys communicating. Morgan is trash. Morgan is trash. Ben is defeated, hopefully through, and Ben even mentioned leaving San Diego. Like, well, maybe I'll just leave and just go somewhere else and start a new life. And all of a sudden, it's like, don't let that heifer run you out of San Diego. I don't know how big San Diego is. I don't know if it's easy to avoid it, but don't let that woman do that to you. I wish Ben all the best. I really do. Morgan, I don't wish her harm, but it's like, girl, no, you don't need to be there either. But I think, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of glad we're not going to see him anymore because it was just torture watching that. So I'm really happy that that's, you know, done for now. I will say that Lindy and Miguel have been boring the past couple of weeks. I feel like that means that they are going to make it because we haven't seen a lot of drama. They've been kind of forcing drama on them, but obviously next week is a different story, so who knows? And then Alexis and Justin, I don't think are a bad match at all. I actually think they're a good match. I think they can make it work, but they just need to focus on the big picture as opposed to some of these little things, right? But I don't know. What do you guys think? Who is your favorite couple right now? Who do you think is going to make it? Not just a decision day, but who do you envision is going to be that 1, 2, or 3 or 4 couples that are going to make it past decision day and really have a happily ever after? What did you guys think about Kristen's outburst? Did you agree with her? Did you think that, you know, Mitch was caught off guard and maybe he's kind of innocent in all this? Like, what do you guys think? Comment below. Make sure you like this video, share this video. I said, you know, comment. I respond to every single comment because I love talking with you guys about the show. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I hope you guys have a great week. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace.